believe it or not, these are the prettiest geraniums you've ever seen, but not yet. It is March 23rd, and this is what my geraniums look like. People are always so shocked when I bring them out and rehydrate them. Let me give you a good example of one that looks promising. Okay, this is looking pretty awful. And it has been put away in a cardboard box all winter since right before the first frost. I pull these out, I let them air dry, and then I pack them into a box, keep them inside in my cooler basement, and they shrivel down to what looks like a dead twig. And every spring I resurrect quite a few of them, and I enjoy them for another season. Look at this. The roots are completely desiccated, but look at the little green sign of life there. So we have a last frost date usually around the middle of April. So I figure these can go out in a month or so, and I want to get them to look pretty. Now, it's not a very hard thing to do to wake up a geranium. This one for sure will survive. And I have another one in here that has actually miraculously quite a bit of green. So the reason you can do this with a geranium plant, guys, is that it has quite a fleshy stem. It's almost like a succulent, and it will retain enough moisture in most cases, if it's a healthy plant, to go into a dormant state for a few months. And that's exactly what we did. Now, a few people get upset that I do this and that I don't drag my pots in and put them around windows. For one thing, I did have one pot that I did that with. They look perfectly awful. I've put them up in the greenhouse, but I don't have enough sunny windows to keep my geraniums in a beautiful, alive state. And even if they're next to a sunny window, they don't like being inside at all. So this is perfectly fine. And I even had a commenter once call me a geranium abuser. So my feelings were very hurt about this. But what we have to remember is a lot of plants go into dormancy when conditions aren't right for them to be growing. I live in an area with deciduous trees that drop their leaves in the fall, and they don't come back and start growing again until the weather has warmed up in the spring. So this is the same concept, and geraniums are able to do this. This one is a scarlet one. By the way, this bucket had the dark red geraniums. Of course, you can't tell at all, but they were labeled. And this one is the scarlet. They're a little bit bigger, but as you can see, again, there's a few green shoots happening. So maybe it's sensing that spring is coming. This year, I'm just gonna put a splash of this Fox Farm liquid plant food. Its ingredients are kind of gross. It's earthworm castings and bat guano. So I'm not going to be putting my hands in this, and I'll probably rinse them off before I plant them. But the first step of resurrecting your geraniums is to let the roots soak in some water. And I'm just going to get a hose and put some water on this. So I'm going to give it a little bit, shake it up. My son gave this to me last Mother's Day, and he gave me a couple of other fertilizers. And of all the fertilizers he gave me, I think I like this one. I like the idea of organic fertilizers, working with nature. It'll be as if a bat came along and fertilized my geraniums. So I'm just going to put a drop in, because you know, these plants are obviously stressed. You just saw what they look like. So I'm just putting a drip in both, just a little bit of nutrition, and I'm gonna fill them up so that all the roots are submerged. They're all faced upward. And then I can't really predict how long it will take to show signs of life. There will be some in here that don't wake up, and that's fine. They can be composted down. I very rarely buy geraniums. Each season I know a lot of people will go, at least in my area, where they're annuals. If you leave them out, they'll die. But a lot of people go out and they'll buy a new set of geraniums for their planters every year. I have taken some of these plants out for several years in a row and treated them this way, and they come back to life. And it's very rewarding, and it's great for your wallet. So let me get the hose and I'll put some water in here. I'm just gonna give them a spray. And I'm sure they will be very grateful considering what they look like. That's enough. I have about 2 to 3 inches of water in here. That is plenty for us to see which ones are going to wake up. So this is the first step of waking up your dormant geraniums. I also have some white ones. I'll have to get those out too, but these are the dark red and the scarlet. By far for me, this is the best way to save geraniums from year to year. So guys, it's time to wake up. And I'll turn the camera back on in a few days and we'll see how they look. We'll see which ones responded to having a little water and a little food. And I wanted to show you, I went ahead and set up my white geraniums, and they're showing even more signs of life. Yes, they're in a gasp-worthy state. They look frighteningly awful, but if you look closely, you can see some new growth. It's all white because it's been inside of a cardboard box with no light, but in no time that growth is going to start to turn green. Some of the stems are even still green. You can use, even smaller containers to go ahead and let those roots soak and drink up some water for a few days. And once these show signs of life, I'll go ahead and pot them up in small pots of potting soil. Through the magic of YouTube, it's 6 days later, and let me show you what's transpired in the meantime. I'm gonna start with the white geraniums. They were my youngest geraniums, and I think they fared the best. Let me show you what's going on here. Look guys, coming to life. Now all of this foliage is a very pale color because I really haven't exposed it to too much light yet, and that should be a more gradual process. I'm going to pot these up today, and it's a perfect day to do it because it's quite overcast, and I will probably keep them in the shade for a couple of days just while they get used to being outside. Now I want to point out to you that we have a large dead portion of the plant. So all I will do is cut maybe an inch above this new growth, and all of this will start growing in the right direction as well. The sun will straighten it out once it's gotten used to growing again. I will just trim it right here, and we have a little bit of a branch coming out this side, but I will cut it right above here. So today I'm gonna pot up and trim these plants, which still look pretty horrendous, but the point of putting them in water like this is just to see which part of the plants are still alive and signal to them that spring is here, start introducing some moisture and some sunlight. So I was really pleased at how the white ones looked, and I wanted to show you a more sensible solution than those big buckets for my other geraniums. I just popped them in a little bit of water here in a Ziploc bag, and the nice thing about a Ziploc bag is that it does create kind of a little situation where there's some humidity around the branches. Now, word of caution, I would not soak these longer than a week. You don't want to have any roots rot, and this is just the way we get them to start growing again. It's a signal to the plant, and you don't need them to get used to water culture. You really want them to be used to growing in soil. So leave them in water for a week or less until you start to see some signs of life. And the second word of caution is I'm going to plant them in these pots. Geraniums do not have a big set of roots anyway. When I pulled these out of the pots they were growing in, this is pretty much the size of the root that was on the geranium. I know it's hard to believe, but geraniums hold a lot of the moisture in their stems. They don't rely on a big root system. That is not the way geraniums grow. And that, like I said earlier, is one of the reasons why we can do this dormancy method to save them from year to year. So as you can see, it will fit right into this pot with plenty of soil. And if you overpot them right away, you do also run a risk of root rot. So I'm gonna get these trimmed up, get them started, and then slowly introduce some sunlight and fresh air. We do have some casualties. Sadly, I have to report there is no sign of life on this, and it is just completely hard and brittle, and in some cases just will snap off. So clearly it's not worth planting this, and it can either be that this plant last year through the drought got quite dehydrated and just didn't pull up enough water to be able to go dormant in the winter, or it could have aged out. Now plants do have expiration dates. They do have a lifespan. And if this was one of my geraniums that I've taken out for 4 years, it just might be the end of this road for this geranium. So that one is gonna have to be composted. And that is part of the reason we wake them up in water. We see which ones are viable. And once you do that, you can pretty much tell the ones that are gonna make it. So I'm going to be using some rehydrated cocoa coir. This is just a brick of cocoa coir, and you add the amount of water it tells you on the package, and you get this nice fluffy mix, and it's really perfect for geranium planting or seed starting. So that is a nice way to plant up your geraniums. And this bag is the scarlet geraniums. We'll start with those. I think maybe I'm gonna break the bag. Now this looks perfectly awful. I'm not sure it's worth it. I think I'm gonna pass on this one. It's not looking its best. Let's just plant the best ones. I have so many plants to work with. Okay, this one is definitely worth it. Okay, I'm gonna show you this one. Now that I've soaked it, it's pretty clear what's gonna grow and what isn't. So let's get this one trimmed down. Oh, I just cut through what I thought was a dead branch, and look, it's green inside, but that's okay, it'll send out some roots. So even some of these branches, I think I'll start to feel down in here. I'm gonna cut this one right here. This one is half dead. Let me cut that off here and cut that off here. Oh, you know, this is gonna be quite a nice looking plant here. Okay, this is quite a symmetrical plant. I think this is gonna be a good looking one. I have high hopes for this one, guys. Let's go ahead and get it planted up. Now I just kind of fill up a little bit, press it down in there. I'm pressing down firmly so that all the air pockets will be closed up, and air pockets are what can cause a plant to dry out. Clearly we don't want these to be drying anymore. We're trying to rehydrate them. Okay, this one I'm really pleased with. I think that's going to be a nice shape. Still not a gorgeous geranium, but trust me, it will be. Okay, I'm almost done with the scarlet ones, guys. I should have about 3. Oh, I think I hear my little carpenter bee flying around. I was thrilled to see that I had a little carpenter bee friend, and they're very curious creatures. They like to come and hang out with gardeners. Okay, this is some brutal pruning, guys, but I think by doing this, I'll be able to get some nice shaped plants. Okay, I'm going to show you how that looks pruned down, but you can see the signs of life, guys. And all of the life will come out of those little leaf nodes. That's where all the branching will occur. And I'm really happy to get this chore done. Oh my gosh, here he comes. I hope he comes into the camera. My little friend, he's very curious about what's going on here. They're very curious and friendly. They are not the kind of bees that will sting you, and I just love to have them around. I think this is a good looking start here. Okay, I'm pleased with those. So I got 3 of these scarlet geraniums. I'm gonna go ahead and put my label on that group of them. Each one will get its own label. But I should have, I'm gonna rip the bag again. It's very careful. You have to be very careful when you're working with these because little bits of growth are coming out from the stem, and they can be very delicate. I'm going to try to get you close to see some of those very small buds. These are my favorite. They are the dark red geraniums, and I love them. I'm doing some selective pruning so that they will grow up in a nice shape. Oh, here's something interesting. The others didn't have this, but here are some fresh new roots growing. Now, your old roots are dead. They're not gonna grow for you, but look at all these white roots coming out just with almost a week of sitting in water. So I think they're gonna appreciate moist soil to grow in. But now I can see this plant wants to grow. Guys, if you're not brutal enough with your pruning, you could end up with some contorted structure. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to prune it back far enough so that the newest growth is going to grow straight upwards. And I don't have a very contorted plant. There are no crossing branches here. It's going to look good. Pruning also stimulates growth, so between the water and the pruning and a gradual introduction to sunlight, these plants are going to wake up beautifully. Okay, this one's all ready to grow for the new season. I only have 2 of my dark red geraniums this year. I did also limit myself to the best looking geraniums last year, and I didn't save anything that I didn't think would make it, or if I didn't like the color, I also didn't save it. Okay, now we're moving on to the best looking geraniums now. Okay, it looks like I have some very nice ones to plant. Now, this is absolutely firm. These were very straight growing varieties, so I am actually going to leave all of this on. I might trim this so that I don't know. I almost want to plant this as is. Let's see. I'm going to cut this piece off, clearly dead. Maybe cut here. I'm just doing a tiny bit of trimming on this one. This is actually really amazing. I'm just cutting small branches off this one. I think this is going to be a really huge geranium, guys. Look at all that growth. Now, I'm not cutting any of this, even though it appears brown. It is so firm. It's turgid with moisture. So this whole thing, I really had to cut back my red and scarlet geraniums, but this whole thing wants to grow. And again, I hope you can see brand new white roots coming out. So that's ready to plant in some soil. Now, I realize this looks a little bit top heavy in this tiny pot, but my roots are not going to rot. And like I said, the geranium roots are so small. at all times of the year that it's really not necessary to do anything. And in about a month, I guarantee you I'll be ready to plant these out. Now in this case, this is completely dead. I can actually squeeze it and bend it. There's no life in this middle branch, but I do have some life on the side. So let's go ahead and cut out the center branch down to where there's a little bit of firmness, and that's pretty far down. Go ahead and cut that. Okay, this one does not look as impressive as the other one, but I'm going to leave that top growth on and it will straighten out and grow towards the sun. Let me trim this one here. Here's another one with a very turgid stem. I just have to cut it down to here because I can see the top part has no growth on it. And I might do this just so it doesn't cross. So I think this one needs a very little bit of pruning. See how all of this is going sideways? That is nothing to worry about. The sun will straighten that out. These have been lying in a dark box, and that's why the growth doesn't know where to go. It's looking for light, and now that it has it, it's going to grow upwards as it should. I think I'm really going to be selective about which ones I decide to grow on. There's no point in growing one that won't be attractive. I have so many flowers growing right now. I want to replant my best ones, the ones that are in the best shape. Okay, that one's all tucked in. That's a great looking plant. It's a little shorter than its friend, but that one I know is going to do great. That's a good looking one. It's got kind of a vase shape there. In fact, I can really make that look good if I come down to here. It's a vase shape plant with three branches. And I basically just cut the middle one out. It will be hidden by all the new growth, so I'm not worried about that. There have been years in the past where I haven't quite pruned enough and the branches look a little contorted. So what I've learned is that I really want to do some nice pruning now so that the new growth that wants to grow comes out exactly where I want it. And here we have it, the final outcome. I've got 10 geraniums that should grow up just beautifully. I think my friend the bee approves. He's been supervising, he's the supervisor. He's so cute. I love carpenter bees. They're so curious and friendly. He wants to come and say hello. So as you can see, even in about a week's time, these geraniums are waking up. They want to grow. And I now have 10 geraniums that I will be able to use in my containers around the garden. And by the way, guys, these white ones I grew from seed last year. So I think maybe to up my geranium stock next year, I'll be growing some more from seeds. But isn't that wonderful, guys? These would have ended up freezing outside, possibly in a trash can. And here I am, reviving them for yet another season. So I hope you try this method. Brutal as it looks, it does work. I don't want to shock them right away, so they'll probably start out in the shade, and then I will gradually move them into a location where there's more sun. And I will also bring them in if the temperatures go into the low 40s or into the 30s. So these should not be outside when it's cold. I think my little bee friend is all worn out from the geranium project. We'll let him take a little rest.